Oh, Jesus Christ, where do we begin with this one? Hello to all my lovely, sweet little fireballs. You're watching a new episode of ElliXia's Discography Dives, a series in which we dive into the discographies of some of my favourite artists. This season, we are talking none other than one of the greatest British girl groups, the Sugababes. In what was the lead up to the 20th anniversary reissue of One Touch, and that actually has already been released now, so I'm a little bit behind, so sorry. But we are nearing the end of this season as this is our penultimate video. Today we are discussing the group's 7th studio album, the somewhat, shall we say, controversial Sweet 7. Where do we begin with the monstrosity that is Sweet 7? Today's look is inspired by the album's aesthetic. As you can see, the cover art is very orange with its theme. It's very fiery. They did a lot of sexier imagery, you know, leotards and all that kind of stuff, and a lot of this kind of posing, like, oh, you know, so that's what I'm going for here. My hair is on fire. And of course, before we continue with the video, don't forget to do all that good YouTubey stuff like liking, subscribing, sharing, comment. If you're feeling generous, you don't have to, but it's, you know, if you want to, then please go ahead. Don't feel like you can't. Oh, and of course, in case you weren't already aware, I am ElliXia Q Valentine, the ElliXia of ElliXia's Discography Dives. So, Sweet 7 was supposed to be released on the 9th of November 2009. It then got delayed to the 23rd of November 2009, and then got delayed multiple times until it finally got released on the 15th of March 2010, where it's charted at number 14 on the UK Albums Chart. It gave us 3 singles, Get Sexy, About a Girl, and Where My Kiss, all of which went for the top 10. However, this did actually end up becoming the Sugababes' lowest selling album in the UK. Before I dive into this track listing today, I'm going to give you a little bit of a Sugababes history lesson for those who don't know. So early 2009, the promotion for Catfights and Spotlights, the previous album, was effectively cancelled. No tour happened for that album. The album didn't do particularly well, so I think the record label wanted to cut the losses and just be like, right, we're gonna get on straight with the next album. And so the Sugababes were jetted off to LA to work with some of the hippest and happeningest producers of the time, such as Ryan Tedder, Red One, Neo, Stargate, people who've been behind some of the biggest hits of recent times. People like Rihanna, Beyonce, Lady Gaga. And so to have, you know, one of the UK's biggest girl groups working with some of the biggest producers in America, recipe for success, right? Surely. Well, not quite.
Does that sound like something you want?
Yes.
Well, let me tell you, you'll never get it.
Summer of 2009, less than 9 months after Catfights and Spotlights was released, they premiered the song Get Sexy. This is a very radical shift in sound and image from what the girls were previously doing, or for what they had ever done for that matter. We will of course get into the song of Get Sexy more. In short, it's a very thumping electronic song about, well, being really sexy. Something the Sugababes hadn't done really before, and this sort of radical reinvention of themselves was initially quite successful. The song reached number 2 in the singles chart. It was even number 1 in the midweeks, but in the end it did unfortunately miss out. But still, number 2 is a good showing. Throughout summer 2009, they were promoting the album, you know, via various different festivals, premiering some new songs. It was very exciting initially because it was like, oh, the Sugababes are going to come back. They've been reignited. They're going to be back with some smashes and be right back at the top of the charts where they belong. However, September 2009 had other ideas. In the middle of September 2009, Amel was missing from the group and missed several promotional appearances, forcing Heidi and Keisha to just do it as a duo. Rumours are circulating around like wildfire that Amel has left. Although nothing is confirmed, but several signs are pointing to Amel leaving the group. This isn't helped when the Sugababes website says that on the Monday there will be an announcement regarding the Sugababes' future. I'm thinking, oh god, so someone's left, or they're going to split up, or the album's cancelled, or what is going on. I was thinking, oh, it's really going to suck if Amel leaves, because I like Amel. Then on Monday the 21st September 2009, I remember it very, very, very well, reading the announcement that A member had left the Sugababes, but it was not Amel, it was Keisha. Keisha Buchanan, the founding member, the last original member of the group who had been keeping the band afloat all these years, was gone. I'll never forget it, honestly. I'll never forget reading that news and being gobsmacked, flabbergasted.
Can't describe what I went through.
We know.
Okay, well, I'll never forget it, never.
The whole weekend before, I had been like making peace with the fact that Amel was probably going to go, and then suddenly it's like, what, Keisha? Like, what? No, that wasn't right. What the hell? Keisha takes to Twitter and doesn't go into huge detail, but informs us that it was not her decision to leave, thus confirming that she was actually removed from the group, which is a massive, massive slap in the face. This is a girl who has been in this group since she was 13, so she's spent a good chunk of her life in this group, dedicating herself to it, being the one to be steering the ship when members have left, to still continue on with the Sugababes, well, band and brand, and they've just tossed her aside. Like, what the hell? The Sugababes website states that the group will continue and will continue to release the album as scheduled on the 23rd of November with Heidi, Amel, and new member Jade Ewan. Jade Ewan was previously known in the UK for representing the UK in the Eurovision Song Contest earlier that year, and was even gearing up to release her own solo record as well, to the point where her solo single My Man, which was meant to be her debut single, was released the day before it was announced that she had joined the Sugababes. What the fuck? As you can imagine, this sends the media, the fans, as well as just observers of pop music into a frenzy. Several articles saying that the Sugababes can't continue without Keisha, several of them saying that the Sugababes are over, and what started as a very exciting era turned very quickly into a very messy one. And of course, we've set the scene, so let's dive in to this album's track listing. Now, a lot of what I've talked about could arguably be forgiven with a really good album, right? But I've got some bad news for you, unfortunately. This album generally is not... it's not very good. And as I talk about the album, I just want to have a little disclaimer saying that this is not an attack on Heidi, Jade or Amel, not an attack on the girls themselves or the producers, because at the end of the day, they're just doing their job. If I'm criticising anybody, actually, it's probably the record label and the management for how this whole thing was handled, because it sounds messy as hell. With that being said, we enter the album's track listing with the first single, Get Sexy. Now, Get Sexy, as you probably gathered, was released with Keisha still in the group, making this her last single as a Sugababe for this run. Get Sexy is a... Oof, where do we even start? It is a massive 180 of what the Sugababes were previously doing. This is a club-thumping electronic banger, singing, or speaking really, because there's not much singing happening in the song, about how sexy they are, how when they're walking down the street, people are saying, hey, sexy. When they're driving in their car or standing at the bar, they say, hey, sexy. You know, relatable content.
I love feeling really sexy and looking dead sexy. Sexy and sophisticated.
I don't even think there's there's not harmony to be found on this song. Amel pretty much takes over the song as well. It's basically an Amel solo song. It's very, very 2009. Like, when you think back to some of the really big hits of 2009, like, you know, Bonkers by Dizzy Rascal or Boom Boom Power by Black Eyed Peas, put this song on a playlist and it will sit right at home with them. But it is very, very dated. You can tell that management wanted a quick and easy hit single. So let's get something that's going to shock people. Let's get something that's going to get publicity and propel them, yeet them to the top of the charts. And thus enter Get Sexy, which is the musical equivalent of when your blood sugar's a little bit low and you're a bit shaky, but you haven't really got time to like properly eat something, so you just have a Snickers instead. And that's enough to keep you going until like at least until you get home, but ultimately it's not enough. It's a song that is objectively awful. Like, the lyrics are trash. I loved it when it was new, because of course, bear in mind, when it was new, There was no sign to me that all the chaos was going to ensue afterwards. And 17-year-old 2009 me just wanted music I could dance to. I didn't really care about substance that much. Give me a song I can shake my ass to and I was happy. Get Sexy has danceability in spades. And for me, it kind of fits that category of like, so bad that it's kind of fun and enjoyable. Like, it is awful. Facts are facts, it is awful. But I do have a little soft spot for it. You know, if I'm working out and it comes on, I don't skip it, even though it is cacophonous. And I have a personal history with Get Sexy as well. Not just because I relate to the lyrics. So I did a dance video, I filmed a dance video for it, for a Sugababes competition in the summer of 2009. And it was not a very good video. I'm a competent dancer. I'm no Alyssa Edwards. I'm no Shirley Ballas, but I am a competent dancer, but that video is not very good. And somehow it won. Somehow it won the competition, which I was very happy about because it meant that the Sugababes were aware of my existence. So I was very pleased. I still haven't received my prize. It's been 12 years and I still haven't received my prize. But yeah, Get Sexy kind of became like synonymous with me because like if it would come on at a sixth form party or like whatever, everyone would be like, oh, ElliXia, come up and dance. They didn't call me ElliXia back then, but I even like performed it at like both our Leavers Assembly and our Leavers Ball as well. So, you know, Get Sexy for a small demographic of people is my song. But what about the rest of the album? So we have track number 2, which is Where My Kiss, which was the album's second single. No, it was not the second single. It was the third single. It was the album's third single. There's track 2. Bit confusing.
A bit confusing. We'll never understand that.
Where My Kiss is a electronic, very, very synth heavy. It's metaphoricizing? That isn't the word, is it? They're basically singing about how they are like a man's best accessory and they liken themselves to items of clothing like a tie or a watch. It's not very good. Now, Where My Kiss has the bones of a good song, I think. With a more beefed up production and a bit more attitude, it could be a really good song. But as it stands, it's just really weak. It was produced by Fernando Garibay, who did some fantastic work. He's done some great stuff for Lady Gaga and Kylie Minogue. This is not anywhere near as good. I know he has done way better production since this. In fact, Where My Kiss actually sounds a bit like an offcut of Lady Gaga's From the Fame, only massively diluted and watered down. It's just not very good. I mean, like, the da 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 hook that's in between every chorus and next verse, it's just really it feels really low effort. And I do believe Where My Kiss could be a better song, you know, like done by somebody else maybe. I feel like the Pussycat Dolls would slay it. Nicole Scherzinger would do a really good job of this song, but it just doesn't suit the Sugababes. And you could argue, well, what does a Sugababes song sound like when there's no original members? Don't forget, Heidi and Amal, at this point they've been in the group for, 9 and 4 years. So like, in theory, they should have been enough to make it sound like a Sugababes song, but it just doesn't work. Moving on to track number 3, we have the album's actual second single, which is About a Girl. About a Girl was even premiered on Radio 1 with Keisha still in the group actually, and then of course with the addition of Jade and the creation of Sugababes 4.0, About a Girl was swiftly re-recorded. For what it's worth, I actually quite like About a Girl. It's a fun enough bop. It's very basic. It's very generic, basic, 2009, radio-friendly, serviceable pop. But it's enjoyable. Like, if it came on at the club, I'd be like, yeah, this is good. You know, it's fun. Again, it's just, the Sugababes can do better. And when listening to a Sugababes album, especially their 7th, I don't want it's okay. I want it to be great, you know? The video for About a Girl is interesting as well. It was the first one to feature Jade, and it also features some stunt doubles because it was meant to be a money heist sort of scenario, and the Sugababes were going to sort of act it with, and then have stunt doubles do all the fighting scenes and stuff. But I think because of the drama with the lineup change, the babes themselves didn't have time to learn what they were meant to do, so therefore their role in the video is they're just stood there being sexy, really, and the stunt doubles do all the acting, which makes it feel very disconnected. But also what's interesting about that is that the stunt doubles resemble, you've got three of them obviously, you've got one who resembles Heidi, you've got one who resembles Jade, and then you have one who resembles Keisha. And it's a bit like, why is that? I think that to me suggests that Anel probably was the one who was going to leave, and that like management and whoever were probably prepared for Amel's exit, if you will. And then of course it all went a bit crazy, and so they couldn't get another Amel double in time. All very, 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 very messy. Moving on to track number 4, we have Wait For You. This one is another one that's kind of just okay. It's inoffensive, it's very generic again. It has that kind of like platitudes of like, well, I'll be there for you, I'll wait for you, no matter what life throws our way kind of thing. It's all right. It's like, it would make a fantastic album track for the Saturdays. It does feel very generic. Also, Heidi's voice sounds really, really strange. I don't know what it is. She sounds like a text-to-speech voice, as if like Heidi herself recorded text-to-speech stuff and somebody made her verse using that. It's very weird. Heidi Range, more like Heidi Strange. On to track number 5, we have Thank You for the Heartbreak. Now this, for me personally, is my favourite song on the album. That isn't really saying much, but it is my favourite song for what it's worth. This one was actually performed with Keisha a few times before her departure. And to be honest, I thought it was going to be the 3rd single. I don't really know why it wasn't, but there we go. If it were up to me, it would have been the 3rd single instead of Where My Kiss, but I'm not in charge. I mean, if it were up to me, Keisha wouldn't have been fucking axed, but there you go. But what do I know? Do you know what I mean? Anyway, Thank You for the Heartbreak is one of those classic songs that's like dealing with an ex-boyfriend and being like, well, actually, I'm better off without you, so screw you. And I love me a good empowerment anthem like that. I think as well, this is the only song on across this whole collection that even remotely has a modicum of classic Sugababes about it. Like, granted, it's got a very clubby production, so give it a more pop, less clubby production, then maybe it would fit well on like Change or Taller in More Ways even, which for this album is a high compliment. But I enjoy Thank You for the Heartbreak, you know, it's on my regular rotation still. And I have to say as well, Jade sounds really good on it, because Jade hits some very, very good ad-libs in her middle 8. And speaking of Jade, none of the songs on this album, with the exception of one of them, were created and written with her in mind. Every song on this album was recorded originally with Keisha, and therefore Jade had to come in and do the best that she could with what was given to her, and I think she does a good job of that. Especially if you take into consideration the possibility that she may have originally been planned to take over Amel's parts. So I think props to Jade. Anything that's wrong with this album is not Jade's fault, because she really was thrown in at the deep end here. But Thank You for the Heartbreak is where Jade shines the best, I think. And you might be thinking, well, okay, this album doesn't sound too bad. But unfortunately, we go from what is the album's best song to the album's worst song with track number 6, which is Miss Everything, featuring Sean Kingston. This is arguably the worst ever song that the Sugababes put their name to. It's just awful. It's materialistic as hell. Lyrically, from a first-person perspective, it talks about a desire for really fancy things, only wanting the finest of clothes, designer, cars, whatever, jewels, the usual rich bitch stuff. Which isn't so much like a bad song choice, you know, we have several songs that deal with the theme of wanting to be rich, like Material Girl, you know, the irony of like being really materialistic. But on this song, the Sugababes just can't pull that off. They can't pull off the irony. And even if they can, there's so much vocodering on this song. The song is drowning in auto-tune, so that any on-record personality and levels of irony or whatever is just completely lost. The production as well is just really noisy, it's really like bleepy, and just generally not pleasant to listen to. It's a cacophonous mess. And then to add further insult to injury, we have the feature, Sean Kingston himself, who takes over the entire chorus. And that's not what you do. If you're a girl group and you've got a featured male on your song, you get him to do a verse or a rap or MC and whatever, but you don't get him to do the entire bloody chorus. Not only that, but he does the post-chorus as well. It's just, Miss Everything is an appropriate title because it misses everything. It's awful. I hate it. And if that isn't bad enough, we then move on to track number 7, which is the album's second worst song, and I would say the Sugababes' second worst song as well, She's a Mess. A very aptly titled song because the song is, once again, a very cacophonous mess. I say it's the second worst, but only by a hair. Only by this. The only reason that it's not as bad as Miss Everything is the fact that there's no features on it. So that counts for something. She's a Mess is noisy. It's, again, vocoded to the highest of heavens or the deepest of hells. It's just so bad. Like, as soon as the song starts, it's like the synths in the beginning are so aggressive. It's just like, hell, do you know what I mean? Lyrically, it talks about a girl, the titular she, who is on a night out and is really messy. She's getting very, very drunk. She's broken her high heels. Her makeup is all smushed and whatever. And spending all her money on getting smashed, getting shit-faced. It honestly sounds like a pale imitation of 2010's Kesha. You've got Heidi trying to be all like Americanism, like went and got her car washed just so she can pull up like, what's up? Like, Heidi babes, you're from Liverpool. Do you know what I mean? And then the song's worst offender though, for me, is Amel's parts. Amel, at the end of every chorus, has this like little bit where she's like, everybody go mad, everybody go psycho, psycho, psycho. Or it, Amel herself, at the time this album was released, said how much she cringed at that part. So like, that says everything you need to know. She also has like a little rap breakdown where she's like, this is how them girls get down, just another night in London town. The song is called She's a Mess, and it is a mess. Borders on unlistenable. There's like no melody to it at all. It's awful.
The content is hideous, and really I didn't want to be there.
So after the 1-2 punch of the Sugababes' 2 worst songs ever, we have track number 8, which is Give It To Me Now. This song is also pretty bad, but for different reasons. So it isn't cacophonously bad, like, that's my new favourite word, cacophonous. I fucking love saying that word. It isn't as bad as the previous 2 songs, but it's just really bland and really kind of just meh. No personality. Again, it's really deficient on melody. And might I add, this is a group that was known for some of the best harmonies in the business and for being some of the best combined vocalists, which Heidi Dade and Amel can do and have the capability to do, as they've showed in live performances. But you would never know that from listening to this record. Give It To Me Now starts off like it's not going to be too bad, but the chorus is just so lacking. I mean, the verses aren't great either, but it's got verses that could be saved with a really good chorus, but it just does not do it. The chorus just feels really monotonous, repetitive, and just really uninspired. When they're singing Give It To Me Now, I can only assume that it is a better chorus that they're asking for. And you know what? Fair play, I would be demanding the same. Am I being too harsh? Yeah.
You've been very, very harsh.
Nice to meet you, Kelly.
Very harsh.
I'm very passionate about Project Sugababes. You know, it's a group that has always meant something to me. So to see it go down so badly like this, it's painful. Moving on to track number 9 though, we have Crash and Burn.
Watch out! You're gonna crash! Ah!
Which is the only song on this album to have been written for Jade or with Jade in mind. Because when Keisha was still in the group and the track listing was unveiled, this song wasn't on there, so it was added post Keisha. This also marks the beginning of the smattering of ballads. It's a bit jarring. But for what it's worth, Crash and Burn is actually quite decent. Not great. It certainly is not top tier Sugababes level in terms of balladry, especially when you compare it to previous Sugababes ballads. of which Heidi and Mel are part for. But it's enjoyable enough. Like, lyrically, it's oddly prophetic, actually, and very much soundtracks what happened with the Sugababes and how much of a car crash this lineup change ended up being and how much drama it caused. Because it uses a car crash for like a metaphor for a relationship breakdown. The problem I have with Crash and Burn is that it does sound very much, it sounds very, 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 very similar to No Air by Jordan Sparks and Chris Brown, which was only a couple of years older at this point. So unfortunately, it does sound like a bit of a rehash or a bit of a, an imitation of that. But it's a decent enough song, which I guess at this point in the album is, after 3 awful tracks, at least we've got something to enjoy. Bringing us on to track number 10, we're nearly done. Bringing us on to track number 10, which is No More You. This song, I remember, they hyped this one up quite a bit actually when Keisha was still in the group. I think Keisha was genuinely quite a big fan of this one. It was done with Neo as well, who, very prolific, both songwriter as well as singer in his own right too. No More You is that classic R&B breakup ballad where it addresses how awful an ex-boyfriend was and how much better they're going to be now that he is gone. You know, we got some lyrics like, everything you didn't like me wearing now comes out of that box in the closet. It is kind of basic, and again, it is not anywhere near top tier Sugababes ballads, but it is, I like it. One positive thing I can say about this song as well is that each girl has their own verse that actually really allows their vocals to breathe and actually like show off that they can sing, and that's much needed. It's a much needed breather in that respect on this album. Like Crash and Burn, though, No More You does suffer a little bit from imposter syndrome because it sounds incredibly similar to Rihanna's Take a Bow, which was only released the previous year. And given that it was a Neo production, I mean, that does make sense because he also did that song as well. But I like No More You. And speaking of No More You, there is also a Rita Ora version of the song as well, which is a bit weird because it's never been released, but it leaked onto the internet. I don't know when it's from, whether it predates this album or whether it came after it. I don't know, but yeah, there's a Rita Ora version of it as well. On to track number 11, we have Sweet and Amazing, in brackets, Make It the Best. Unfortunately, we are back to not very good territory again. Sweet and Amazing is that self-help platitude, obligatory garden variety box ticking song. One of my least favourite tropes in pop music are self-help anthem songs with no conviction. I like a good inspirational song if the singer is believing the lyrics themselves and can convince you to believe them as well. And there are several really good examples of that, like Little Mix are good at doing that, even Jessie J is good at doing that. And with the Sugababes as well, they themselves did it with Ugly back in 2005. But Sweet and Amazing just comes across as really inspiration by numbers, which is just, I hate that. I really don't like that kind of song. Because I just think, you know, unless you actually believe in the lyrics you're singing, then don't tell me how to improve my life. You know what I mean? It's just really flaccid. It's called Sweet and Amazing, but really it's just bland and underwhelming. And finally, to finish this record, we have Little Miss Perfect, track number 12, the closing song. This is a ballad. For what it's worth, is actually quite a decent ballad from this album. Vocally, again, like No More You, vocally it showcases them all quite well. Addresses a breakup which they maybe regret a little bit because they thought they'd got everything right in their lives, and then they've actually realised, well, hang on a minute, maybe my life isn't as good as I thought, and maybe I actually really miss you quite a bit. It's okay. I mean, again, I've said that I feel like a broken record at this point. It's not top tier Sugababes ballad at all, but it's enjoyable, and after 12 tracks, it's like, well, okay, that's the best you can ask for at this point. At this point, though, I'm just glad that the album is done. And it is a real shame with Sweet 7 because this was so hyped up in the early stages. It seemed like it was going to be really good, and I can remember 17-year-old me was really excited for this record. But as the months unfolded and the delays kept happening, it was becoming more and more apparent that this album was not going to be very good. This album is quite a sore spot for a lot of fans. because it was the last release that they did. When the Sugababes first started out with One Touch, and with their subsequent releases, even throughout lineup changes, they were always a girl group that were able to stand out from the pack in their own right and still have originality, have uniqueness, and they were doing music that other girl groups weren't even touching. They were really pushing the boundaries of what British pop music could be. And over time they did start to lose their edge. Even though they were able to maintain it and still maintain a good quality output, the edge was sort of starting to fade to the point where it got to Sweet 7, in which any sort of originality and identity that the Sugababes had, either as a band or a brand, was unfortunately just buried. It was lost in a mix of bad choices, ill-advised decisions. If they had bounced back from Sweet 7 and were able to come up with an album that was of the same level as the previous work, they could have probably brought the brand of Sugababes, whatever that meant by this point, from the brink. But it just didn't happen. There was talk of an 8th album in 2011. We even got a single from that, and it seems to be like, okay, maybe there is a bit of life left in this, but unfortunately that fizzled out as well. And for a long time, this was the last Sugababes album to be released with the name Sugababes. I know there are quite a few people who like Sweet 7, and you know, you could have taken some of these songs and given them to other artists and maybe it would have suited them better. But as it stands as an album, and as the 7th and final album of one of the best girl groups in the UK, it is a sour spot. Sweet 7, more like Sour 7. Sweet 7, more like Yeet 7. I'm kidding, I wouldn't do that. Thankfully though, this might to date be the last studio album to be released under the Sugababes name, but it is no longer the last we have heard of the Sugababes. After many, many years, many delays, and many promises of soon, we finally have a new Sugababes release in our hands. Now this might be a re-release of the first album, but to be honest, if it means bringing the Sugababes back as an active entity, then that is more than okay with me. And now we can finally close off Sweet 7, put it behind us, and look forward to the future. And on that note, thank you very much for joining me for this episode of ElliXia's Discography Dives. I'm a little bit exhausted after all that. Sorry if Sweet 7 is an album that you like and you've just heard me slagging it off for the last however long this video is. But it is just my opinion, you know, it's not fact necessarily, and whatever. And I wish nothing but the best for Heidi, Jade and Amel. But this isn't the end of ElliXia's Discography Dives season Sugababes, because next week, or next time I should say, because I don't have to put time for them anymore, we will be discussing 2021's One Touch re-release, which I'm very excited to talk about because I love it. Also in the next video, I will be discussing some of the greatest hits compilations that have been released, as well as touching upon like the sort of wilderness years between Sweet 7 and the One Touch re-release, because there were a few bits and pieces here and there to discuss. And I can assure you that will be a much more positive video. And with all that being said, thank you very much for tuning in once again. I have been ElliXia Q Valentine, and as always, please book me. Mwah.